Be sure to log into your YouTube account, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a video. Best of all, it's free to do so. Welcome back to Porsche Club Insider, episode 15. We are at the podcast studio at 5 North Main. Thanks to the folks upstairs, again, as always, for the Coffee Bel Air. I'm here with the Insider crew. I'm your host, Vu Nguyen, PCA's Executive Director. We have Manny, our Technical Director. We have Damon Lowney here, our Digital Media Coordinator. Mr. Sass in 56K video quality. He's on the road, but Rob Sass, Porsche Panorama Editor, is with us online. And our special guest today is Jim Hemig, PCA's Director of Marketing, and probably the biggest race fan. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, which is why we brought you, Jim, because you've been wanting to join us for several episodes because there's been a lot going on in the race world.
Yeah.
Have you ever, can you imagine telling one of your kids they can go to Disney World, but the other one can't? That's what it was like when I told Connor that Jim was coming to the podcast. But he wasn't.
Yeah, Connor's jealous.
So speaking of little kids, when I was out at Treffen, I met this family, Britt, and they had driven out to Treffen, and they talked about how their kids listen to our podcast. And so I said, I'll throw a little nugget in our next podcast. So Sebastian and Conrad, if you're listening, thank you for listening. PCA Juniors there. And if you enjoy the podcast, if you would, please comment. Please give us a like, or Rich Smash and Kurt Dobrance. Thank you guys for recently commenting on the Apple podcast platform. We really do appreciate that. So if you're listening, we really would love the ratings. It helps us out. So if you can, do that. So are we talking about F1 today?
Well, it's not so much F1, but about your dream trip adventure that we all live vicariously through text messages. You got here's the worst part of this for the audience to know. Vu is not a sports person, to include racing.
Right.
And so when he found out that he was being invited to F1, I told him to go and start watching Drive to Survive, like binge watching this stuff, so he wouldn't seem out of place when people brought up drivers' names and whatnot, to be familiar with it. And are you at least now a little bit of an F1 fan?
Absolutely. And just a little bit of background. Like, I don't know why. In the family, I just got the car gene. I love cars and do everything about cars. But when it comes to sports or following professional teams, regardless, car racing, basketball, football, like all those genes went to my brother. And he is as crazy about that stuff as I am about cars. So as Manny said, when I got the opportunity or heard about the opportunity of me going to F1, I had to binge watch, Drive to Survive?
And the worst part, I think you were only on season 2.
No. So here it is.
Because you didn't know about the whole Hamilton Verstappen last race debacle. And
so I thought I was doing very well because I was like maybe the second to last episode of season 3. This was just after the COVID, and I thought I was almost done. I didn't realize there was a season 4. So it was a little difficult for me because some of the colors of the cars have changed and the drivers have changed, and I'm like,
it's not like baseball where they stay the Orioles or the Red Sox the whole year round.
AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso AlphaTauri, and then the pink cars, which are now the green cars, and then. Yeah. So one of my favorites is Ricardo, right? And he went to McLaren. I did know that. Yeah. So it was cool. So I did try my best to study before I went. You guys are much bigger fans and kind of have heard about the craziness. And Connor went last year. I believe he went to Coda. But he didn't share much with us, right? Like I believe I did a much better job sharing.
I don't think his experience was as good as yours.
Oh, Miami's better.
Yeah. So let's talk about the venue, right? Like this is a venue that has been set up in the last year around the stadium. I think it's the Miami.
No, well, let me correct you.
Is it?
This wasn't set up in the last year. This was set up in like weeks.
Yeah.
This is where the Miami Dolphins play.
Right.
So they don't have a whole year because this is where a professional NFL team. This is where they've been fans park at.
That is even more impressive because when you roll up there, you look at the track, you look at the grandstands, you look at all the builds. you're like, how is this even here? And this is temporary?
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Now, granted, there are some, as much as I love the racing and I love the cars and stuff, but my background is logistics. And, what I was amazed is how did all of this stuff get here, right? So the grandstands, the builds, the Hard Rock Cafe area that had the swimming pool. And it was almost like, you remember, was it MTV? What's it? Spring Break?
Yeah.
Those shows that they had. It was like that on every corner of the turn in Miami. It was unbelievable.
This was all in a parking lot too, right?
Yeah,
Of
it's
the
where they
stadium?
park at. It's where the fans park at for the Dolphins games.
Would you have known it's a parking lot?
No, absolutely not. I mean, of course the track was the track, but everything around it was just built up facilities. And the Red Bull experience area where we got to be at, it was like, a beautiful, like anything you would find at the beach, beautiful decks with cabanas and full on, food, and there's concerts. Post Malone is singing. It was a party for.
You notice, Jim,
3
he
days.
has not mentioned one bit of racing yet.
No,
I'm
racing
just setting it
comments.
up for you. I'm just setting it for.
So what did you do so that you can make sure you're going to be on the next season? We got to hear those.
Honestly, I feel like very fortunate that I've been able to experience this one, and the next one that comes around that gets
It's
the
going to be
invitation.
Jim and Manny.
Yeah,
There you go.
I really feel it. Tom Gorsuch, our national president, was able to join me, and that was good. But I got to share the wealth.
Is Tom dyeing his hair?
Tom. I hope you're not listening to this, but no, I don't think he did.
I think he is.
Is he? I don't
He
know.
looked very young.
Well, speaking of young, that's the other thing that you absolutely notice when you went to the event, that the average age just, compared to normal races, where you're probably looking at, low 50s as the average age for motorsports. This one was, man, you had teenagers, you had kids, and probably the average was 25 to 40. I mean, much younger. And
That is why Porsche wants that audience.
yeah. And the who's who, obviously you guys probably saw, from TV or the very few texts that I sent to you with, having dinner with Michael Bay and, Michael Strahan and
You having dinner with these folks?
Well, I was at the same event. So it was wild. It was wild to see all of these people. And, I'm a people watcher. So my question was, how many of these people were truly motorsports fans, or were they there because it was the end thing to do?
I don't think Formula One cares.
Well, that's it. And I think Jim and I were talking about that as, regardless if they're truly into it, hopefully this is what leads them into being more of a fan. And I certainly, for me, that's the case, right? I've been appreciating it more and more as I've been watching the Netflix series, but seeing it all put together in real life, it's unbelievable.
Well, we all had that moment in our life when we became a car freak and had that singular moment. And that's what we're all hoping, is some kids watching that F1 race going, this is what I want to do.
So one of the many highlights was we did the paddock tour, and I just simply asked one of the folks, like, could we get closer to take a few photos? So they actually said yes. And I went under the rope to Leclerc's garage.
I think the C's solid at the end.
Why are you trying to...
Go ahead.
Anyways, so they were making
Leclerc.
adjustments to the car, and we were talking to the people that were sort of like, sharing with the fans what was going on, and they were saying they're making these tweaks to the car, putting it all together in the garage. Car's not moving; it's just sitting there on jack stands, and once they put it all together, or the air jacks, whatever.
That would be pretty funny to
Yeah.
see on
Jack
jack stands.
stands.
Harbor
But they're-
Freight.
Maybe Aston Martin because they're running out of money.
But they're sending all that data back home,
Mhm.
and they're running those cars in simulations to see how it would react to the track that was just recently built.
Yeah.
And then they give feedback to the folks that are actually on site and say, yeah, that change wasn't that great. And they take a nose off, or they make a suspension adjustment. Like, all this was going on. Like, they were testing the car, but it didn't really look like it because it was just parked in the garage. But they were just I mean, they were going 110 miles an hour.
And you learned that from Drive to Survive, how big each team is. What I discovered this past weekend, because we had a region social, and so I was talking about the Miami Grand Prix, and I was amazed at how many members were not aware of the difference between Formula One and IndyCar. They were like, oh, this is what raced in Baltimore a few years back. And I said, no. I said, that was IndyCar.
Yeah.
They were said, but it's the same car. And I said, no, the same as if I'm Brad Pitt. Because Brad and I both have a head, two arms, and two legs.
You're both males.
So, it's...
I get confused.
Yes, exactly. So I said, no. I said, that's the only similarity is that they have open wheels. After that, it's a world of a difference, primarily the amount of money that each team, the budget they spend. And, Formula One, what you see is like the tip of the iceberg at the track. The support personnel at the headquarters is really mind-boggling. Like you said, how many engineers they have and how many people looking and reading data to be able to get that 1/1000th of a second sometimes. So you got to see all. I saw you send us photos, and I thought, there was a day when Ferrari would have freaked out if you would have taken a photo of their garage.
No, they were
amazing that you were allowed
open
to take
arms.
photos.
They opened up the paddock area. People were walking through. They had things roped off. And like I said, I just simply asked if I could get a little bit closer for a photo. And, if you were lucky enough and they said yes, you went under the rope and you got, I literally could have touched the car if I wanted to. I didn't want to be that guy, but.
Then you could ended up on Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. But the weirdest thing out of all of it was being at a motorsports event and not able to really see and or fly the Porsche flag. Like, that was kind of weird for me, because you saw McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes.
You should have gotten the flag and just said, we're coming in 2026.
2026.
We were definitely talking about it, but you know how wherever we go, there's like Porsche stuff, right? And this whole weekend,
were they talking about the fact that Red Bull and Porsche would probably be the...
They were talking about it when we brought it up, because we were just like, when are we going to get into this action? And it's
anybody willing to commit any information?
No. We were hosted by Pirelli. I don't know if I said that earlier. And they serve all the teams. And of course, I tried to pry from them, but no, their lips were pretty sealed tight.
So for Drive to Survive fans, you got to meet Gunther.
Oh yeah,
which he's probably the most colorful character.
He's one of my favorites. He's one of my favorite characters, and he showed up at the Pirelli event, and he walked through just as you would think. He is who he is. Absolutely super down to earth, friendly, and very cool.
Now, did you get to race and karting against Leclerc and Sainz?
So that is probably the biggest highlight of my weekend.
And are you signed on the junior program now?
I should be. So they had like a public Red Bull experience, and they had K1 electric carts available for people to drive. And so I had heard about this. I was like, cool, maybe, I'll get to drive and see how well we do. So, actually everybody here, I think, except for Rob and Jim, you haven't driven in a karting league with us, but we drive pretty competitively here. It's obviously not a PCA event, but we drive in different kart series here in Maryland. So anyways, I'm thinking, maybe we can represent, right? So the public drove, and the top 10, I heard something about top 10 drivers will get to drive on Saturday night. And I knew that Saturday night that Max and was it Checo?
That's the thing was Sergio
Perez.
Let's say Sergio.
Sergio Perez. I'm still learning all this. Would be driving on Saturday night. I'm like, or they said Red Bull drivers would be driving. I'm like, I can't imagine that they're gonna put these guys that are gonna need to really do something with random people on the track. So, anyways, we get to the event, and I notice the leaderboard, and the leaderboard was, I think, like 10.2 seconds was the top person. So I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Sign me up, sign the waivers, whatever. And I hop in, and I try to do it as soon as possible, so that way there was an open track. So I went out, and I'm not kidding you, I clicked off a 9.9. So I went straight to the top. I'm like, FTD, I represent. I was like, I get to race Max or I get
So
to
you're
race
the
someone.
first sober driver.
Yeah, right.
I don't. Doesn't matter. So I got FTD, and I'm talking to the people that are running. I was like, so what does this mean? They're like, oh, you get bragging rights. I'm like, so do I drive? They're like, so they didn't even really know. So anyways, so now the party's happening or whatever. There's more people driving, and I'm just watching to see if anybody's gonna click a lap faster than me, and no one. They're like 10, 11, 12 seconds, whatever. And so Max and Sergio show up. They had special carts that were set aside.
Of course.
They pull it out onto the circuit, and so now they're just driving by themselves, which makes total sense. Like, why would you put a wonderful asset like that and have public people accidentally put them in the wall and hurt them or something, right? So it totally makes sense. So they go out, and even with them driving each other, they spaced it out, just like if they were qualifying, so they're not running into each other, so that they can click the fastest lap. So anyways, at the end of it all, Max Verstappen only beat me by 0.7 seconds, and Sergio beat me by 0.5 seconds.
Wow.
So you said this is a 9.9 second track?
9.9 seconds.
Jeez.
Is
Small
what
track.
It was tiny.
Tiny track.
It was tiny track.
Yeah.
It was pretty much
So if you had taken Damon, he could have beaten him.
That's why Damon's asking.
That's why Damon
wish.
didn't get to go. But I was looking at the times, at the Grand Prix. Like, I'm pretty much, Leclerc was behind by at least a second. Leclerc by a second or so. So I'm pretty much like him.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So you didn't get to do a Saturday runoff or anything?
No, that was Saturday. That was Saturday night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they clicked off their laps and got back in the car. I'm sure they went.
So
to
you
bed.
finished best of the rest.
Yeah.
Of the public. Wow.
Best of the public.
Not
I
bad,
know, right?
Not bad.
See that? You join PCA.
I know. The things that
Don't drink, and you can be the best.
So yeah, I was super excited about that. But again, around the town of Miami, there were different venues celebrating F1. Not a lot. I thought you would see a whole lot more in downtown Miami celebrating things that are related to F1, but it wasn't. I don't think they completely get it just yet.
Well, I'm glad you went. And to Manny's point, I'm glad we're talking about motorsports, because there's a lot of people that don't really know. They don't follow it that closely. Yeah. On any given Sunday, an IndyCar race will get 1 million people watching it. Any given Sunday, Formula One will get 1 million people watching it. Most of those people don't know the difference between the two.
Well, that's the Formula One number we were looking up. That's ESPN.
It's U.S.
Worldwide, it's mind-boggling, the viewership.
The U.S. is finally catching up.
Well, I can tell you that, we talked about the Netflix phenomenon all weekend because, people that were there were very well versed in what was going on because of Netflix. And then, back in the day, folks like you all kind of took nuggets of information, or you sought out information to really understand. I think Tom was the one that said this, is like Netflix did a great job of taking what enthusiasts were building in their mind around F1 and putting it into a format that the normal person like me could binge watch and kind of catch up and understand and appreciate the sport.
And plus, it's a bit of a reality show.
What's up, Rob?
Yeah. Out of curiosity, this was your first F1 race, right, Boo?
Yes.
So just show of hands around the table. How many F1 races in the room?
How many, or have we gone?
Manny, I know you're the leader here, Manny. But how many have you been to?
Yeah, who else has gone to an
been.
F1?
Yeah, I haven't been.
You've been to an F1?
I've been to several.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I don't know how this Miami Grand Prix compares to others, but it really was like a party scene. It was unbelievable how much they had around and things to do. And I don't know. I've been reading a little bit online, what people felt about the track, but it was fun. It was absolutely fun.
They did a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little boring.
The track itself?
To watch, because it seemed like they followed the leader, which unfortunately happens with these little tracks, even though it looked large. I look forward to Las Vegas because that looks pretty big, especially when you compare it to what they did at Caesar's Palace years ago. It's going to be a substantial track. And then Coda, to me, is the best. If you're going to want to watch a Formula One race, go down the Coda because that's a purpose-built track. A lot of great vantage points, has elevation changes. Miami is a great party city, and I think that's why they picked it. You know, Bernie Ecclestone's dream was to do Manhattan. He wanted to do a U.S. Grand Prix in Manhattan because, you know, it's the center of the world, if you will.
Formula E will be in New York in July.
And we have one fan of Formula
Manny and I
E.
debate this all the time. So
We'll get into that in a second.
Let's not lose our viewers right away.
It was in Miami, but I was in Detroit twice, 87 and 88, and saw Senna win both times, once with Lotus and once with McLaren. That was fun. I mean, that was a weird street circuit, but it was fun.
Yeah, the only thing I would, again, this is my only reference point, but they still had a little bit of issue with regards to getting, I think it was 80,000 people was sort of the cap on how many could be there. It didn't feel like crazy crowded, but it was crowded, right? But then when those 80,000 people needed to leave in the afternoon, they did not have enough access points for people to get out, and getting out of there was kind of crazy. Especially,
remember you were asking me if you could make your 7:00 flight.
Yes. So back to that, I would not have made my flight.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, I would not have made my flight. I mean, it took, you know, going in early in the morning, it took probably 15 minutes to go from parking lot to, you know, where we were watching the race, and then going home at least an hour. I mean,
That's lucky.
and an hour with a lot of people. I would say a lot of people, but people were getting a little frustrated because, you know, these temporarily built bridges that were kind of rickety, and you have a person on every step, and you know, you have a couple salmon trying to swim against the grain and they're being yelled at. It was not pretty.
I can imagine.
My hat's off to the organizers. I mean, that was an incredible transformation.
Yeah.
And a great reflection of F1 in the U.S. And after seeing how much Baltimore struggled with their IndyCar IMSA weekend and getting it set up, because it's not the easiest thing to create a racetrack, you know, like that so quickly. And it seemed like, you know, everyone was very thumbs up on the
I got to give whoever's in charge of HR for all the people that were working the event. They were you almost felt like you were on a cruise ship. Everybody, I mean, even if, as you're walking out, have a nice day, get home safe, you know, welcome, good morning, how can I help you? I mean, it was amazing, the customer service that they had there. I did learn that there's a group of folks that travel with the show. Obviously, they have to have locals for a number, but I mean, a good number of people, that's their careers. They're traveling and going from race to race, and it shows because they knew exactly what they were doing.
So you and Tom, I guess you guys rented one of those $100,000 cabanas?
No, so again, we were hosted by not only Pirelli, but also another sponsor of ours, Tag Heuer. And Tag Heuer was tied in with the Red Bull experience. So we just went wherever, you know, they told us to go. And, you know, we had at the Red Bull experience, you could go in there and they had cabanas, but trust me, we didn't. It was hot. Like we were looking for air conditioning. It was nice to be under a cabana if you really like, you know, 90 degrees and 98% humidity, and some people did. But they
kept feeding Vu Red Bull drinks.
So you're hot, you're thirsty, and you know, of course, ice cold drink is good. And you know, they had all these Red Bull drinks, and I think I had like 6 Red Bulls in one day. And I think I'm like suffering from it now because my body is looking for this caffeine and I don't have it, and I feel like I'm dragging.
Oh, I had an equally exciting weekend too. It rained all weekend in Baltimore, Maryland.
Like, don't hate me.
But I did go to the Silver Spring Porsche unveiling at the brewery.
Was it for the Macan?
Yes.
Okay.
TJ Waffles.
TJ Waffle Truck?
Yes.
Pretty much the
same thing. Which I found out is just down the street from the office.
Yes.
I told the girls, I'm like, how have we not had lunch from this place?
Well, they don't run it out of there. That's just where they park.
The truck is open. They have a storefront.
They do?
And they have well, why would they list where they park their truck if they're not going to sell?
I thought it was just one where when they're not operating, that's where they park them. I didn't know that they
I looked online. They had the hours. They're only open until 2:00.
Manny and Connor talked about this for about 3
Well,
hours.
so I mentioned to Chrissy, and she's like, "Well, we only get a half-hour lunch, and it's 10 minutes away." And I said, "That's why we send Connor. Throw a waffle and have him go chase it." And
You know how much this is killing Connor that we talk about him so much and he's not sitting here?
it is.
It's literally killing him.
Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. We'll bring Connor in at some point, and you'll enjoy his discussions.
So, anyways, it was fun living vicariously for your photos,
And thank you for prepping me for it. I definitely watching the series helped, but your insight on what to look for and what to see definitely made me appreciate it. And the cars, it was cool to see the cars on track, but at some point it's like, okay, I saw it pass a number of times. I had to go back to look at the screen to see what was going on because you can't see the whole track, and it kind of looks the same every time it passes you, and you don't know who's in the lead or what's going on, or there's action on the other side of the track. So the TV was still very much useful because you couldn't really hear the announcements. It was so loud.
So in the fall, what we're going to do is you're going to watch a series called Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks, what's that about?
And it's about football.
Oh, geez.
And we're going to learn football so we can discuss the Ravens in the fall.
Well, I love playing sports. I understand football.
So you need to be taken to the Super Bowl in order to get into it's only VIP or nothing for me.
I thought you were going to say Ricky Bobby and then try to get him into NASCAR.
Well, I guess with this most recent experience, I guess that should be the bar.
I'll talk to the NFL.
Yeah.
See what they can do.
All right. Let's talk about Treffen at the Broadmoor. Man, it sounds like I've just been doing bucket list items back to back. And the Broadmoor was also amazing. The hotel there. I can't believe, I don't know the year in which it was built, but obviously it's a historical landmark. It's gorgeous out in Colorado Springs, and being so close to the hill on Pikes Peak, and lots of history there. It was beautiful. The amenities and the Alpine Mountain region, the volunteers put on an amazing program. And of course, Alex Ching and the national staff running Treffen, they did an excellent job.
So for those not familiar, Treffen is a 3-day event, right? Is it Thursday?
Oh, no, we started actually on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
That's when people arrive. Right?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, when does
Or
the
like
actual
half
event
day.
start?
Yeah, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
So 3-day event.
Mm-hmm.
It's all tours.
Mm-hmm. No competitive events.
No competitive, not like parade at all. So you
Drive,
basically-
dine, and explore.
You have breakfast at the hotel together, and then you go to your respective tour groups you signed up. And usually the tour has lunch included, and you basically drive your Porsche, like Damon said, and then you come back in the evening, and we have a group dinner.
Exactly. And then after the group dinner this year, we had the after hours lounge presented by Princess Cruise Lines, and it was a lot of fun. We had a golden mic competitions where it was a lip sync battle. Guess who won the golden mic on, was it the first night or second
That
night?
didn't
Second
impress
night.
me. What impressed me was when I heard he was a singer in a band.
Yes. And who we are referring to is our national treasure, Craig Kugler. We were at dinner on, I think it was on Friday night, probably Friday night. And Mary Lou, his wife, had let the cat out of the bag and said that he was actually in 2 bands, a band in high school and a band in college, and he was the lead singer. I'm
Please
like,
tell me when I watch golf.
I believe he was actually a quarterback in high school too, like the myth, the legend, right?
I know. So of course I'm like, do you want us to turn on the mic? He's like, no. And I was like, well, you got to do at least the lip sync battle. He's like, no. But sure enough, we twisted his arm. He did it, and he freaking took home the golden mic. Pretty cool. Yeah, he was working the crowd. He definitely had experience working the crowd.
What song did he lip sync to?
I don't remember. I think originally it was an Eagles song, and then he switched to some other song. So classic rock. His genre is classic rock. He did a great job.
So from the EC, you had Craig.
Craig, Aaron, Cindy were there. Yep. Cindy also, I forget what song she did, but you know how Cindy has like this, maybe when we first met her, when we met her in Salt Lake City, right? She had like this bob haircut and kind of has this like 60s vibe to her, and she like wears polka dots and stuff like that.
I'm not commenting at all because my raise is
No, but anyways, we got into, you know, in that evening, got into one of the twist songs and stuff like that. Like she was totally in her element. She had so much fun, and yeah, it was really cool.
Those Treffen events are a great time, and that's where I met Damon at the very first Treffen.
Very first one, Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, Treffens are, you know, they're so popular. You know, we get a little bit of criticism in terms of, you know, how tough it is to get into them. But the reason why it's so tough to get into them is because we have to maintain the size. If we make it any bigger and it turns into an event that won't feel the same, you know, we can only get into so many bucket list locations by keeping the size small, more intimate in terms of dinner venues and stuff like that. So that criticism is partly the reason why it's so successful, and the charm of the event is keeping it that small size. But still, we had
hundreds of people.
Yeah, I mean, hundreds of people, and people had a lot of fun. And it also was, you know, I was happy to see it's a pretty diverse crowd in age and such, and cars too. And we did, Damon, I sent to you some files. We drove. It was about maybe a 4-mile drive from the hotel to the tour departure area. So cars were warmed up, and I took that opportunity to do some water-cooled exhaust notes for you. So people fired up their cars, let it idle a little bit, and then they blipped the throttle. Should be an exciting video because the cars were warmed up, right? So
Yep.
So since our last podcast, it occurred to me, because we're still in the every 2 week podcast mode. It feels like it's been a month ago, but just 2 weeks ago, we filmed a video of Rob changing the water pump on his 996.
Oh my gosh, that does seem like it was
Which
easiest thing in the world.
Yes.
That's what you guys were saying.
And in my tech tips I did doing this week, member sent based on, after watching our video on how to clean your top, condition your top, he did a video of how to fix the boxsters when the top doesn't go into the channel or the frame.
I saw that, and my cars do that at the same thing too.
I tried it. I said, you know what? I said, I've seen several of these videos. There's several on the internet or YouTube. And I said, I'm going to go try it, because it was raining this weekend. Yeah. I'm going to be inside. So I went to Joann Fabrics, and I got the elastic.
Okay.
Yep. And all told, less than an hour. And that was me taking my time. And so I put it as a level 1. Anyone can do this. I mean, if you can use a pair of scissors, you should be able, and a stapler, you can do this. But a lot of times it doesn't go that way. It's not that easy. So we watched the videos on how to change a water pump. Some of us have done water pumps. So we tried it on Rob's car. And I think everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. And, you know, Rob was so confident that we were going to do this in a day. Boo had the foresight to say, let me bring my minivan, just in case you don't have this running by the end of the day. You could use my minivan.
If I'm not mistaken, he used my van for 2 days, didn't he?
Yes, we got to go to auto parts stores. We had time to bond in the car as we're going around looking for parts. He was shocked that my playlist goes from Red Hot Chili Peppers to Afternoon Delight.
So I was pretty okay with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The Starland vocal man, not so much.
That's
but yeah,
classic.
Pretty much every that could go wrong did, including. It's a good thing there are no outtakes from this. You know, we have that sort of firm no cursing rule that was broken slightly when I banged my elbow against the oil fill tube and cracked it in half. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's a key thing when you're attempting these types of projects, especially on a older car that has, you know, brittle plastics and such. As don't do it under a time constraint, because you will run into something and cause you so much stress. Like, you need to have a plan B and take your time. And that was certainly the case when working on your water pump. There was times I believe you were tightening something, and I said, you're going the wrong way. And had I not told you snapped that bolt, that would have been another 2 hours.
Yeah, it's
right. No, I was pretty frazzled after that. That happened actually right after I broke the oil fill tube, and at that point I was pretty frustrated and pretty frazzled. But Manny and I had a really good time figuring out this sort of quick and dirty improvised repair for the oil fill tube that worked out just fine. So in the end, It was a highly worthwhile experience. It was, in hindsight, it was a lot of fun.
And he got home to Michigan.
You did, and the car runs cool, right?
Yeah. Never over 180 on the whole trip. I reset the trip odometer when I picked it up in Connecticut, a month and a half ago, and it's at 2,100 miles at this point, and it's still yet to use an appreciable amount of oil. So, all seems good.
Bring a trailer now?
Yeah, I was going to say,
PCA Marketing? I didn't see it on the PCA Mart,
So you've got like you've got a few more months before it gets gone, and I get my free
1 year
lunch.
or 2 years he's going to?
No, so we mentioned the little wager that's going on, Vu. I don't think we have yet.
It doesn't matter. I'm going to win. You're going to sell that car in a couple months. So
wager. I mean, we're going to be back here April 1st of 2024. And I'm going to be talking about what a great dinner Vu bought for me. So
does anyone believe that he's going to keep this car for 2 years?
No,
absolutely not. Not possible.
By this fall, it'll be gone.
Yeah. But I will give credit where credit's due. I think on the video, you'll see mostly Rob working on the car, but the person that was probably the grungiest and most stuff under his nails and probably cuts and all that was Mr. Lowney.
Yeah, I cut my finger pretty deeply on the seal that Rob started to pry off and said, I should probably go get gloves. And he goes to get gloves and I start prying and there we go. Bunch of blood. Learned my lesson.
Yeah, and I went to the restroom after I didn't know this. I walked into the restroom and it looked like a crime scene in the sink. And I'm like, what the heck?
Red, yeah.
That was Damon trying to...
Don't pry at a metal seal without gloves.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
You could tell he never took first aid in Boy Scouts because he had bubble wrap and duct tape on his finger.
And he just kept on going. That was the crazy part. He was like, oh, well, I'll just tape it up.
I didn't want to look at my finger. I don't think I did until a week afterwards.
Is it healed? Let me see.
Yeah, it's healed.
That's a normal day for Damon, though.
Exactly. Yeah. My fingerprints changed, though. So
that video will come out. I'm not saying any date yet because it's a lot of editing. But
yeah, that's not a straightforward edit.
I'd probably say.
And it's going to be a video, long. I guess, like I told Damon. I think we really got to do like I said, I see all these videos and everything goes perfect because as we know, everything's pre-loosened, everything's done ahead of time. So, it's just like watching a cooking video. Mm-hmm. Everything goes flawlessly, and you have everything in front of you.
And you have all your tools lined up.
Ours was a real, I think, do-it-yourself. What would really happen if you attempt to do it yourself? You can get it done, but set your expectations of how long it's going to take.
Yeah, and things to be aware of and not break your oil, the oil filler tube, because that can be that can add hours to your job.
Yeah. And it's not like I bumped it that hard, but as you said, the plastic was
the best was he cussed so loud that the girls at member services, Charlene, made an excuse that she had to get something from the garage because they sent her to find out what happened. that Rob was yelling so loud and cussing.
And I had broken when we did the IPD plenum in my 996. I had bumped and cracked the little connector for the coolant line there. So I knew things were brittle. And of course I warned him on that, but I didn't even think about the oil filler tube. And we reached out to Mr. Peter Smith and asked him about that. He's like, oh yeah, those break. But there's only so many things he can tell us because there's, he knows about it, but he can't tell us everything, right?
No, we're lucky, and you reminded us because I'm sure we would have taken that off.
You would have knocked it and just cracked it, and then
because I remember there was bolts we were trying to take or nuts we were trying to take off, and the whole stud's turning.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, is there anything that's going to go right in this job?
Yeah, you're lucky. The water pump that we took out, yes, it was leaking a little coolant, which is why we told you to do it. But that bearing was on its way out.
Yeah, definitely. But the whole thing, as we said this earlier, it all boils down to a fairly limited amount of access to everything. I mean, the last water pump I changed, I mentioned, was on a 72 Datsun 240Z that I owned. And there's plenty of room in that engine compartment. It's a pretty easy job because there's almost unlimited access to it. But This was nothing like that.
Well, at least the 911, it's in the back. On my Boxster, it's between the seats and the engine. It's really tight.
Yeah. What I've learned working on cars like that is things are usually pretty simple to do. Not complicated. They're just not easy, and it's usually because there are a couple bolts that maybe have a bit of rust, or they're just in a super tough area, and you'll spend 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours just trying to figure out how to get that one bolt out. And it's the last bolt before you.
And there's usually some special, special trick, special tool, or way to approach it. Or being in the Northeast, we have a lot of rust to deal with. Peter Smith out in California, he has no problems taking the exhaust apart. Like if we did anything on the exhaust on our cars, we would be there for at least a day because everything cracks, everything breaks, and he doesn't have to deal with that.
That's why you guys do these videos.
We do, and hopefully it gives a real representation of what the job is. And even if you don't work on the car yourself, but when you take it to somebody, you'll appreciate how much work goes into to doing this job. And there's these little things about certain cars that will kind of throw you in for a twist, because Mr. Sass's car doesn't have like a factory pulley on it, so the belts aren't exactly the normal size of a belt, and then he had to go get a special size belt, and I still don't think you have the right size belt. They gave us the wrong size. And they gave you the wrong size belt.
Millimeters off.
Yeah, and a few millimeters makes a difference.
Yeah,
that makes a difference.
Yeah.
So if you keep it stock, at least, if you keep things stock, at least then you know what you've bought will fit. But when things are modified, you have to plan for these little these little nuances to deal with.
Best part of this though was Damon's coolant vacuum. That was fun to use.
It's a fun little tool. Super handy.
Yeah, we'll put it out in the video how it's worth the investment, which is very little. It's less than $100.
I think it's $50 for the tool. It's if you have you need an air compressor though to work it. But if you already have one, super easy. You'll wonder why you've not.
You don't even need a big air compressor. You can get just a small one; it'll do the job. It's but yes, it was.
So this tool that they're talking about has the ability to put a vacuum into your coolant system. Once it's put a very light vacuum to it, then you run a hose to your coolant and it backfills without creating air pockets in your system. And old school days, you would just run your engine hot and leave the coolant cap open until it burps itself. But these newer engines have a lot more cavities and such like that you might not be able to do with the old school method. So that tool you have is really cool.
And of course, we were so proud of ourselves that we had reached the finish line. And then it occurred to us that we didn't turn the heater on.
Yeah. So we had to turn it on. There was a bubble because of that. In my car, when I used that tool and on Rob's, I had to put a vacuum on it twice. But again, it's so simple just to get that last air bubble out. Put the vacuum on it.
Why we had a full container of coolant still left over that we didn't use.
Yep.
All right, let's get into some Porsche news. We talked about obviously F1. Let's see, LMDH.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna throw it over to you, Mr. Jim.
Yeah. Well, so if you've been listening to the podcast, I think Manny's mentioned this a few times. He's also had a tech article on it. But things are lining up for Daytona next year, where the new Porsche prototype will start racing for the first time. So the latest news is they've got 2 of these built. One is doing the rounds in Europe, where they're doing some testing, and the second one's on its way over here to the U.S. to start some testing. But I happen to be writing about that this week in the Motorsports Roundup. So I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but between the LMdH category and the LMH category, so starting next year, this will be the first time that these prototype classes will run for outright victory, outright wins, both in IMSA and in the World Endurance Championship. So this kind of goes back to, this is before Damon's time, but Manny, I'll remember well when the GTP,
Jim's older than me, so I'll let him speak
by one month. But this will go back to the 80s, where the same cars are racing at Daytona as they were racing at Le Mans.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited to see that finally that convergence coming back together.
Now, what's the difference between LMH and LMDH?
So LMDH, so that's Le Mans Daytona hybrid. So those are mid-engine, 2-seat prototype race cars that have the internal combustion engine in the middle, and they have a hybrid system that's in the back. So that category is you have to have one of the 4 spec chassis manufacturers. So whether you're Cadillac or Porsche, the different manufacturers are getting into that category. They have to pick one of the 4 spec chassis, and they have to use the spec hybrid system. So the only part of that car is really Porsche or Audi or Cadillac, and these other manufacturers that have joined that group is the engine.
And the bodywork, though, right?
They can have some custom bodywork. So if you look at the cars, they all look very similar. But they're like that today. Most of the prototypes are very similar. So in that category, a lot of that stuff is spec. And then they just modify it, like Damon said, mostly the front end to look a little different, to more like their street cars.
So that's what Porsche's racing.
So that's what Porsche's doing.
And Porsche's using Multimatic?
Yeah, so Multimatic chassis. They're using a turbocharged V8, a twin turbo V8 from their Panamera Cayenne line. So as a Cayenne owner, I'm always excited when they pull stuff off of the Cayenne to be in their prototypes. But you're going to see that car testing here in the U.S. here shortly, and of course I mentioned in Europe, and then those cars will start at Daytona next January. So this is Penske team's going to run these cars, and I think my prediction is they're going to dominate IMSA next year because they're the first of this new prototype that's testing. Now, what's different with the LMH, that's Le Mans Hypercar, those are manufacturers that are starting with a clean sheet of paper. So Ferrari, Peugeot, Toyota.
So they don't have to pick a
they don't
chassis.
have to pick a chassis. They can make their own hybrid system. You're going to see those cars starting next year at Le Mans. And my prediction is they're going to do quite well because they're going to be able to run a 4-wheel drive system. They can put the hybrid in the front, where these LMdH cars are going to have the hybrid in the back. So what Porsche's, their advantage with this is they can get out of the gate fast because they're getting a spec chassis, spec hybrid system. They can also build these at a lower cost, so they're going to start selling them to customers. So again, back to the 80s, if you remember the 80s, they had the Porsche 962. You would have a factory car racing right next to a bunch of customer cars. And what's so cool, at least for me personally as a big race fan, is I love those days in the 80s because you could see John Fitzpatrick Racing bought a factory prototype, is racing in IMSA, packs that car up, takes that same car to Le Mans, and runs against the big factory teams. So Porsche is going to have that same blueprint where they can sell these customer cars. But over to that LMDH, the hypercar category, they're going to be up against some stiff competition because Ferrari and Peugeot and Toyota, so far, they're all leaning to that category. And my guess is you're going to see the Ferrari come out sometime this summer, is they're going to be 4-wheel drive hybrid systems. And I think they're going to have that advantage out of the corners that the current 4-wheel drive prototypes have. So I think Porsche is going to dominate in IMSA, but when they get over to the World Endurance Championship, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them.
Now, was there talk of like certain fuels for these cars, or?
No, that's Formula One. So what Porsche is really pushing is to use the synthetic fuels,
right,
starting in 2026. But you will see the synthetic fuels work their way into the Porsche Cup Series. So,
which I think they've already done that, at least with some of the Cup cars and race cars.
Yeah, but you're going to see all the GT3 Cup Series will probably switch over to synthetic. They'll use that platform to kind of show off their new technology.
So do we know any other teams that are running the Multimatic chassis?
Right now, only Porsche and Audi.
So something tells me that the Volkswagen Auto Group had a lot of input on this chassis.
Oh, yeah.
It may be a spec chassis, but you got the two family companies using that one chassis. So I don't think this is like buying a suit off the rack and hoping it fits you. I think this is something that Porsche, had a lot of say in how Multimatic was going to build this chassis.
Without a doubt. If you watch any of these races, you see some of these cars, they all have the same brake systems. I mean, Porsche's not going to go and invent every last nut and bolt on any of their race cars. They're going to farm stuff out. So, whether it's a spec chassis or not, a lot of the parts are coming from these different manufacturers. But the interesting thing is so Porsche's got this car and they're testing it all over. It was supposed to be the same prototype, Multimatic, again, the same spec hybrid, but Audi was going to run that same V8 twin turbocharged engine. But we haven't heard or seen anything of that Audi prototype. And my money's on that Audi's holding out for this F1 deal. And as soon as you hear that Audi and Porsche are officially in Formula One in 2026, Audi's out of prototype. That's where my money is.
I wonder if so Porsche ran the 919 for 4 years.
Yep.
And I think the RS Spider was around the same time period. It wasn't a very long run either. Have they said anything about how long they plan on running this LMDH? Because we know Porsche is not a big company, and you can see the resources of what Formula One team uses. And I wonder, are they planning to finish up this new LMDH program so they can work on Formula One when that's over? Or
well, Manny and I talk about this stuff all day long. It's all speculation, of course, but again, my money's on Porsche is going to be in this for 3 to 4 years. That's kind of the life cycle of a race car these days. And then you'll see them just sell these cars off to customers and let customers keep running it. They did the same thing with the Group C, the 956 and 962. They ran that in the World Endurance Championship for a few years, and then they were just selling them off to customers and let the customers keep running.
I would love to see Porsche enter LMH or Le Mans Hypercar. It's what, about 10 years in 2024, 2025 since the 918 Spider, so again, speculation, but you'd think Porsche has a supercar coming out within the next 5 years or so. Would they race it in LMH and have that all-wheel drive system and be at the top of the top?
Again, my crystal ball is just based on following motorsports for 30 years. But my guess is you will not see that.
No LMH.
Unless they don't go Formula One. So my guess is to Manny's point, what they'll do is they'll race the prototype, try to get a couple more Le Mans wins because they want to make sure that they have the most, which they still do by a huge margin. But they'll run those cars for a few years and then sell them off, and that'll be it. Because, again, to Manny's point, Porsche is a small company, so they just don't have the financial depth to do all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like they would potentially spread themselves pretty darn thin.
Yeah.
Wow.
But as you guys know, Porsches, they've been racing since the first car was finished. They've been racing Porsches, and they use a lot of the racetrack, what they learn on the racetrack, to put that back into their street cars. So they're always looking at racing as an opportunity to learn something for the from the production side. So we talk about Formula One with the synthetic fuels. That's big for them. Also, the hybrid system is something that they're very interested in. Same thing with Formula E, which I know is Manny's favorite topic, but a lot of what they're learning in Formula E is going into their EV cars. So Taycan, of course, the new Macan that's coming out, and the Boxster Cayman, they're learning from Formula E. So I would suspect that whatever they're going to learn from the prototype side will be from the hybrid, the hybrid portion of it, and then that'll translate to street cars.
So speaking of all this history and racing, by the time this podcast comes out, we will probably know about Rensport and where it will be.
Hope so.
I hope so.
Are you telling us this, or are you theorizing?
Sounds like insider info.
I was going to say.
Let's just say by the time this comes out, then we should know where we're going. And
if we do,
will
there
the
will
rest
be a
of the
link.
world know?
Huh?
Will the rest of the world know?
Yes, the rest of the world should know by the time this podcast is out in
I
public.
just read, what was that, a week or two ago, that Laguna Seca, they approved all the track updates and upgrades that they were requesting.
Yeah, that's suspicious timing, isn't it?
Yeah, they just said they're just got it approved and it should be done by the end of this year. Which,
Well, let's rewind to our last podcast for those of you that haven't listened to it, and we had our predictions there, and let's see if we were correct.
Yeah, some of the comments, and I agree with all the comments. They brought up Coda, Road America.
Road America, yeah.
Of course, Daytona, and these are all tracks that I would love to go. I would love to see it because it's within driving distance. Maybe not Coda. Indianapolis.
Maybe.
Well, we are going sports car
Dude's
together.
got this
there.
blank stare on us. We cannot read him right now.
I'm very good at poker.
Yeah, it'll be either way. I'm happy that it's coming.
Yeah.
And I hope the LMdH car is there, like the 919 was.
No doubt. No
yeah.
doubt it's going to be there for
It's,
sure.
And going back to LMdH car, one of the differences I see, I know when you were telling us the difference between the hypercar, maybe a better car, more competitive, but Porsche is going for overall with this car.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Spider, when the RS Spider, they came right from the beginning and they told us, this is not racing at Le Mans. This is not going for overall wins.
Yeah. It was LMP2, which was under the top class.
Running against it, which was very depressing to us because we had waited so long that we wanted to see them racing for overall. And instead, they come with a car that looks like a prototype. And then they tell us, no, this is not. And it didn't. It did not race at Le Mans under Porsche factory banner.
Well, they had a lot of orders
some
back
races
then because
overall.
the P1 car that Volkswagen Group wanted to win was the Audi
Yeah.
P1, and so P2 got to be Porsche. But that Porsche actually beat the Audi at several
like
tracks.
Damon
Won
said.
overall a couple times, I think.
Yeah, it was very fast.
Man, we are cruising. We are almost at the top of the hour, but we still got a couple more things we want to cover. A lot of videos have been dropping. Congratulations to all. We are, I believe, at our 400th or just over the 400th YouTube video.
Yep.
Next stop, 500. And I believe we're cresting 50,000 subscribers.
Yep, we're a hair away from that.
So if you haven't enjoyed one of our videos on YouTube, please do so. And we really encourage you to subscribe. It definitely makes a difference for us. So just click that subscribe button if you don't mind.
And by the time they're listening to this, we will have dropped our first 1 mile review.
Yep. Did we talk about that before? Do people know what
I
that's
think
about?
we've talked about, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. So we got 1 mile review. Oh, and we did I don't think we talked about this before, but we did kind of not our first short, but probably we kind of got into shorts. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we're testing out one of YouTube's newer features. And it's kind of like, Instagram story or Reels or your Facebook story where it's a short form video. Filming vertically is encouraged, which is something that I have a tough time doing,
and a lot of our members have a tough time watching.
Yeah. But a couple of we've released a couple. One of them has done really well. I think several thousand views, and that was just closing the hood
Closing on 10,000.
Yeah,
10,000.
and that was
I mean,
because
crossed
we were
10,000.
messing around with Mr. Sass's 996, and I noticed that his crest was flattened out, and that was because whoever owned the car before kept using it as a point of closure of the frunk. And we said, Manny came up with "Don't press the crest."
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people have been doing that wrong, including me. I remember being explicitly told you close the hood on the crest, and I don't know who said it or told me, but I've been doing it wrong ever.
Well,
since
I don't know if it's right or wrong per
Yeah.
se. I mean, I guess it depends on how your hood is set up or the bumpers and stuff like that. If it's a very light pressure that allows you to close it with pressing on the crest, then maybe that's okay.
I think all you got to do is look underneath if you look underneath how the crest is mounted,
yeah, there's no support.
it's very little support, and
Yeah.
that's why these crests break.
Yeah.
It's because it's not a whole lot of support, and the studs that hold the little screw or
Right.
bolt. It doesn't take much for pressing on it to break it.
And if you look at a perfectly good crest, then it should be, be convex. It should have, a rise in the crest. And if yours is flat or even concave where it's been pushed in, that's because someone's been pressing on the crest.
And as Rob would probably say, British car owners could only hope that their biggest problem was how to close the front hood.
We always somehow weave that into the discussion, Mr. Sass. And then our top video has been doing well.
Yeah, how to condition your top. Yeah,
I
I've
had
had
a
several
number-
people come up to me and say that they were going to try it the next sunny weekend to condition their top.
Yeah, a number of people at Treffen also mentioned it, and they had thought about doing it before, and after seeing the video, they are confident that they're going to try it themselves, which is exactly why we did it.
Now, I have to say, we didn't mention this on the video, but I tried an experiment on my Z3 because my Z3 top, it's held together literally with glue and tape.
Yes,
And
mostly glue.
It's an original top, so it's well over 20 years old. I think heading on 25. Actually, it is over 25 years old. But I gave it the best. I went to Walmart and I got the $4.99 3M water shield. Got it in the camping section. It said for cannabis, so I said, "What the heck,"
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna see how long it lasts. But this is my daily driver, so it's as opposed to the Porsche that's sitting in the garage all the time undercover. This is something that's out in the rain and everything. So Jim saw it out in the parking lot.
It is beat up.
No, I'm talking about the beating, not the top condition.
He looks at your car and literally shakes.
Yes, the glue. The car has a lot of glue and tape holding it together. But I refuse to do anything but maintenance work on it because it has over 200,000 miles. So
it still runs great.
It's like my dog when the veterinarian said it's on its last stage of life or something like that. It's been like 4 years now.
Just keeps on going.
And the dog has a limp, but whenever she sees food, she runs like a Kentucky Derby winner. So I'm like, this car refuses to die. But we'll see how my $4.99. I don't recommend that for Porsche tops. Spend the extra money. Just less than $100. I think we spent on each one of the top conditioners, and it's worth it.
Totally worth it. But it'd be interesting to see how your inexpensive.
I have a feeling it probably won't last as long as the other ones do.
Yeah.
But heck, $5 is worth an experiment.
Yeah.
All right, coming up June 1st, we have Tech Tactics Live. What is the entry level Porsche? Ooh, I don't know if there's many entry level in the sense of like low dollar.
Well, Rob and I were talking about this, and I thought about using his terminology, but I thought it may offend some people. He called it the bottom feeders because he said he likes to buy bottom feeders.
Well, I self-identify that way, so I mean, how offensive it be.
And so we were talking about the Nathan Mers type of car. Nathan's cars are like number 2s.
Yeah.
And beautiful, almost museum type quality, perfect cars. We were talking about cars that are drivers, cars that you maybe could daily drive. You wouldn't think twice about leaving it outside or leaving it in the rain. Cars that I think what the majority of people are probably buying is that, or at least those who are trying to get into the Porsche ownership world without spending $60,000, $70,000.
I think you're going to land in the 986, 996 world, but just condition is going to drive the price.
Well, that's the case. So we'll talk about, 987.
Mm-hmm.
There's 987s out there for $15,000, but you got to be prepared not to have a perfect car.
Right. And buy the right one that you don't end up buying someone's headache. And you buy it for $15,000 and find out you have to put
a water pump,
a water pump, or put $15,000 worth of.
Don't forget
updates.
The Cayenne.
Oh, true. Cayennes are probably actually. You know what? Now that you said that, that's probably one of the strongest buys. A modern car, low dollar, but they too have some certain things that you have to look after because
speaking of which, you have about like 10 warning lights on your car.
These newer cars, I mean, I love them, but they're too smart and they can sense everything, and I'm constantly using my durometric to figure out what the heck is it sensing. And we had to move it out of the garage because a pallet was coming in, and what light was on then?
Your 4-wheel drive system doesn't work. It says
so it works, it just says something's wrong with the module, and then the light leveling thing. So that's only two lights.
I think it felt like it was more. I just quickly took it out, shut it off, we moved the pallet in, then I moved it back in.
But it drives wonderfully. All right, Works Reunion, August 19th. I'm actually heading out to Monterey next Tuesday and Wednesday to secure, hopefully, our home for this year. It's a beautiful location. It's not signed and sealed, so I can't tell you where it is, but plan on being at Works Reunion August 19th.
We found out where the help is staying.
For
work.
I think it was in Reno, Nevada. I think it was something like that.
Yeah, it's always tough with finding
that whole
lodging,
town is sold out,
and they just charge you to the moon. Like a Motel 8 is $300 a night.
Fortunately, Melanie is the one doing reservations, not Jim. Jim is recommending these towns, and then he's going, "Yeah, that's sketchy as hell." But they got pretty good rates.
Well, he grew up in the area, so you would think he'd know the ins and outs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you're still recommending sketchy areas. Price point. We're very
Sketchy
price
is a
sensitive.
relevant
If we pick a field of fruit, we get to stay for free.
But I think she did find and got approved. We do at least have a place to stay.
That's most important because that car week, that whole town books up.
Yeah.
Oh, we got the worst case scenario is Gilroy, which is an hour and some minutes away.
It's not bad either. It's just far. It's just far. It's like a 45-minute ride.
Smells like garlic.
Yeah. The whole town smells like garlic.
Yeah, but you don't have to worry about vampires.
You get used to it. They have the best little breakfast place like down the street from that Gilroy Hotel.
Yeah.
I'm going to see you in a little bit in Newport, Rhode Island, but I've got to get to the airport.
Oh my gosh, me too. So, anything else before we sign off?
No, you guys can leave. We can
Just keep
run
talking.
unsupervised.
I just have to point out because I'm, not everybody's, actually watching this on YouTube, but if you are, or if you're not, you can always flip over to YouTube and you'll note that Manny and I always wear the same clothes every day. So
they coordinate.
We coordinate.
This
so
is
every
the
day
unofficial uniform
of the office.
Mainly because we got, how many shirts of these do you have?
I think 9. Team.
Yeah, well, Connor was also suffering from FOMO because he only has 2.
Yeah.
In one state.
We got 3. There's 3
That's
days.
why I told him we had 3 of
I don't know if you can see on the camera, but these are the official wear from Sports Car Together Fest from last year.
The best name for an event Porsche's ever done.
Yeah.
So Manny and I wear the same shirt every day because we're twins. So like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito,
I'm a little taller.
Yeah,
Danny
so
DeVito.
you can figure out which one's which. Also, Manny doesn't let us wear jewelry in the office. So, while
You're
we're
all
working,
blinged out with
we're not
2
allowed
watches.
to wear jewelry in the office while we're working.
Are you channeling Lewis Hamilton?
So,
Is that
so
why you got 2 watches
I'm
on?
rebelling by wearing all of my bling, everything I've got, supporting Lewis Hamilton's jewelry ban.
All
right, folks. Well, it was great having you, Jim. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you aren't a current PCA member, Jim is very upset because if you own a Porsche, you should be a PCA member. You have to join. Just get your VIN and sign up at www.pca.org. And remember to follow our podcast Instagram page and see the behind-the-scenes photos and videos. All Porsche Club Insider, all one word. Send us a message. Continue, as I said earlier, if you would, comment, rate, let others know that you're enjoying this podcast because it means a lot to us. Until next time, stay safe and we'll catch you down the road.